Hi friends, welcome into Chat Sports. I'm Thomas Mott, and today we're going to take a look at the San Francisco 49ers news and rumors. We got a lot of really interesting rumors today, the first of which centers around Earl Thomas, and could there be some mutual interest between Earl Thomas and the San Francisco 49ers? Now remember, Earl Thomas is set to be a free agent this spring. He's going to be on the market. Anyone can go sign him, and the rumor is that his former teammate and current San Francisco 49er player, Richard Sherman, is willing to help recruit Richard Sherman to the San Francisco 49ers. There's a couple of things to like here, one of which the fact that Earl Thomas is only 29 years old. He's still young, he's still a good player, and the San Francisco 49ers run a very similar defense to the one that Earl Thomas was used to running in Seattle. Let's take a look at Earl Thomas's resume here on the graphics list. He fractured his leg in week 4. Remember that? All the way back against the Cardinals. Broke his leg, essentially. Did not play the rest of the season, so he's coming off of an injury. But the career stats are really good. 28 interceptions, 479 solo tackles. When healthy, he's basically considered the best cover, and really he can hit as well, but the best cover safety in the NFL. And like we said earlier, he's only 29 years old. This could be a really interesting pickup that the 49ers could grab here in free agency and add him to what was the worst secondary as rated by Pro Football Focus in 2018. They need secondary help. We know that. Could Earl Thomas be the key to bring him in and improve that backside of that San Francisco 49er defense? Now, we know that the San Francisco 49ers have a ton of cap space, like over $60 million in cap, so bringing in a guy like Earl Thomas is very doable. Let's keep an eye out on this rumor. I want to go to my Golden Nugget possibility meter. It's a new thing we're going to do here. How many Golden Nuggets, 1 to 5, on the possibility of this actually happening? I'm going to go with 3 Nuggets. Now, there's a little bit of mutual interest. We already talked about Sherman already played. He played with Earl Thomas, so maybe bring him in, pair him up together. I'm going to go with 3, though, based on the fact that Earl Thomas is coming off of a fractured leg. That would worry me a little bit if I'm San Francisco, because that's a big deal. A broken leg. He will be ready for week 1, but again, maybe you could just go to the draft and get someone there and not have to worry about bringing in kind of an older guy, even though he's only 29 years old, an older guy who has the injuries that Earl Thomas has. But still, 3 Nuggets is going to be my Golden Nugget possibility meter here for Earl Thomas becoming a San Francisco 49er. What do you guys think? Should the 49ers make a run at Earl Thomas in free agency? Let me know. I think that they might, and if I'm them, why not? You got enough money, throw it at him, add to that secondary. Let's see what the 49ers are going to do with Earl Thomas. Moving right along here, some NFL draft news, all regarding the San Francisco 49ers, and has to do with the fact that maybe the Niners are going to be in place to draft Nick Bosa at number 2 overall. Now, let's set the stage here. Mocks have Bosa falling to number 2, and that's all because Alabama defensive tackle Quinnen Williams is rising up draft boards, and the Cardinals, who are sitting at number 1, need interior defensive linemen. They don't really need edge rushers. Bosa's a true edge rusher. Quinnen Williams is that true interior defensive lineman. So the theory is here that the Cardinals now look at their team needs, look at the draft board, and they go, okay, we'll take Quinnen Williams at number 1 overall. That would leave Nick Bosa to fall down to number 2 for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, here's Nick Bosa's resume. We know it's great, but a little asterisk by it, because if you forget, Nick Bosa left Ohio State after week 3, suffered a core injury against TCU, didn't play the entire rest of the year, but the numbers are still there. In basically 2.25 seasons, right, 2.25 seasons, Nick Bosa, 17.5 sacks, 29 tackles for a loss. A lot of people, I think the majority of draft experts are going to say Nick Bosa is the best defensive player in the draft. He's the best pure pass rusher in the draft. This is exactly what the San Francisco 49ers need. Now, many draft boards have him at number 1. So they have him as already going to be off the board. The Cardinals will take him. No worry about that. But now, with Quinnen Williams' draft stock rising, I think it's only going to continue to rise when we see individual workouts, when we see him at the combine. The Cardinals could look at their needs and go, okay, we're going to take an interior defensive lineman because we already have good pass rushers, and then that would leave Nick Bosa falling all the way down, not too far, but down to number 2. Our buddy Tom Downey, his big board has Bosa at 1, Quinnen Williams at 2, Josh Allen at 3, Ed Oliver at 4, and Jonah Williams at 5. But Downey said, It's really the top two, Williams and Bosa, either 1A, 1B, or mix them around. And then there's a little bit of fall off between Josh Allen, Ed Oliver, and Jonah Williams. So again, it's all about what the Cardinals are going to do at number 1 overall. If they can stay away from the hype of Bosa, and remember, a lot of times people, if you're sitting in the number 1 spot, you just take the best player available, so you automatically take Bosa. But if they draft more for need, and they go for Quinnen Williams, then Bosa will be there at number 2, and the San Francisco 49ers could really shore up a big need on their defensive line and get probably the best player in the NFL draft. Keep an eye out for that one. The Golden Nugget possibility here, this is very possible. I think I'm going to go 4 Golden Nuggets here, that this might actually happen for the 49ers, because when the NFL draft comes around, there's a lot of different scenarios that are yet to be revealed. People could trade up to number 1 and take a quarterback, which we'll talk about in a second. And if that happens, Nick Bosa will still be there at number 2. The fact that Niners are sitting at number 2, they're in perfect position to where there's no pressure. If Bosa's gone, they can take someone else. But if he falls, and he only has to fall 1 spot, then the San Francisco 49ers could be in place to draft Nick Bosa. What do you guys think? Who should the San Francisco 49ers take at number 2 overall? I want to know what you guys think. Let me know. And this brings us into what is, to me, the most interesting player the 49ers are rumored to be a part of, and it's Antonio Brown. We've heard the rumors of Antonio Brown, that the 49ers are interested, that there's mutual interest there. Antonio Brown has expressed the fact, maybe I want to play with the 49ers. But recently, there's been some interesting developments, which I think might help San Francisco. And here they are right here. Antonio Brown was accused of domestic misconduct in January. Apparently, he pushed the mother of his child in an altercation. He's currently fighting for custody or joint custody of his child. And so that has caused a little bit of, I guess, controversy revolving around Antonio Brown. Now, he wasn't charged, and he probably looking like he's not going to be charged. So there'll be no arrest, there'll be no jail time, there'll be no, I guess, big mark on his record. But we know that the NFL is already looking into this situation. And when it comes to domestic violence, they tend to have a pretty firm hammer ever since the Ray Rice thing happened. Kareem Hunt, off topic, but was just signed by the Cleveland Browns. We all know that. Kareem Hunt is not going to be eligible to play week 1. The commissioner is going to come in and he will suspend Kareem Hunt for X amount of time. It could be up to 10 games. This could play into the Antonio Brown thing here. Because it's a domestic misconduct, what if the commissioner suspends him for 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 games? That would impact the price, which we're going to get into right now, of Antonio Brown. The new price, and get this, 49er fans, get excited about this. The reported new price for Antonio Brown is between a 4th and 6th round pick. You heard that right. 4th and 6th round pick for a guy who's due $17 million in 2019. This is fascinating to me because we all know how good Antonio Brown is. Look at the resume here. 74 touchdowns, 837 catches, over 11,000 yards in his career. And yet, the price could be as low as a 6th round draft pick or as high as a 4th round draft pick. I was reading somewhere that it could essentially be a compensatory pick where, based on incentives, if he makes the playoffs with the 49ers, if he catches X amount of balls, it could shift between a 6th and a 4th round pick. This is very interesting if I'm a 49ers fan. I know the domestic misconduct is probably going to scare some teams, but if he's not charged, which is not looking like he's going to be, then that would leave the door open for you to make a trade for Antonio Brown for a 4th round draft pick at most to get a guy who is arguably the best receiver in the game, still in his prime right now. The 49ers need weapons at wide receiver. They don't have very many. They don't have hardly any, besides like Marquise Goodwin is probably their best receiver. You're going to have to bring someone in, whether it's free agency, whether it's a trade for Antonio Brown, or whether it's the draft. You're going to have to make a move. And so in my opinion, why not spend a 4th round draft pick or even a 3rd round draft pick? I don't think there's any 49er fans who wouldn't mind spending a 3rd round draft pick to bring Antonio Brown in. We got to keep an eye on the domestic misconduct. And it's not going to really rear its head until later, after the NFL concludes its investigation. It could be 0 games, like we said. Could be as many as probably 4, 5, or 6 games, depending on how serious it is. I don't think, based on what I've seen, that it's going to be as serious as, of course, Kareem Hunt's video. And he's probably going to get 10 games. But keep an eye on Antonio Brown because it's going to change the price, which we see right here, a 4th through a 6th rounder, only 1 pick for Antonio Brown. For me, the Golden Nugget possibility, I think it's 4. I'm going to go 4 Golden Nuggets here. I really think this is a perfect fit for San Francisco. I know they only have 6 draft picks this year, so you're going to have to spend one to get Antonio Brown, but you can't look at this year's wide receiver draft class, regardless of how good it is, and say that any of them could come in this year, in 2019, and be better or even as good as Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is a top 3 wide receiver in this league. At times, he's probably the number 1 wide receiver in this league. And the asking price, if this is true, if this rumor is true, if the asking price is a 4th through a 6th round draft pick, I am jumping on the phones. I am calling the Pittsburgh Steelers and making the trade for Antonio Brown. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Type yes if you want them to trade for Antonio Brown. Type Y for yes or N for no. I want to know y'all's thoughts because in my opinion, I already said it, a 4 golden nugget possibility, 4 nuggets, I think this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Just keep an eye out on the domestic misconduct. If this goes clean, and then the commissioner doesn't come out and suspend him for a ridiculous amount of games, this is probably going to happen. I really believe Antonio Brown in the future, probably before the NFL draft, will become a San Francisco 49er. Now this next one, as we move right along here on our San Francisco 49ers rumors, is all centered around Kyler Murray. Now before you freak out and go, whoa, 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 we have Jimmy Garrapaolo. It's centered around Kyler Murray not because the Niners should or are going to draft him, because that's not the case. It's centered around Kyler Murray because the fact that he just declared that he's officially going to play football and that he's 100% invested in his NFL future, this might help the draft stock or the draft implications of the Niners having the number 2 overall pick. And really, it could revolve around how good his combine performance is. How important Kyler Murray... I can't express how important Kyler Murray is for the San Francisco 49ers draft this year. We said it earlier. The 49ers only have 6 picks in this year's NFL draft, and we said that if Kyler Murray has a really good combine performance, which he probably will. Kyler Murray is a really good NFL player. I think he's going to be a very good NFL player. I think he's going to blow people away at individual workouts. He's going to have a really good combine, and he's going to show up at the NFL combine as well. I think if he has an excellent pre-draft a couple weeks or months, teams are going to be licking their chops and dying to trade up to get Kyler Murray, and that would mean the 49ers could get some extra draft picks. We know the Giants need a quarterback. We know Denver is interested. Jacksonville needs a quarterback. Redskins, they all need quarterbacks, and they're all looking at Kyler Murray. In my opinion right now, in the NFL draft, there are 2 top 10 quarterbacks who I think are going to be a lock when it's all said and done, who are going to be picked in the top 10. Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State and Kyler Murray from Oklahoma. And now the question becomes, what could the San Francisco 49ers get if they traded back out of number 2 to let, I don't know, the Giants trade up to number 2, or the Jaguars trade up to number 2, or the Redskins trade up to number 2? What could be a potential trade that the 49ers could do? What could they get for it? I thought back to the Eagles trading up from number 8 to get to number 2 to take Carson Wentz with Cleveland. Now, you see it on the screen right there. Here is what the Eagles traded away and what the Browns got just to move up from 8 to 2. Remember, the Eagles traded the Browns 2 first-round picks, 1 second, 1 third, 1 fourth. They moved up to number 2. They got Carson Wentz and then a 4th back from Cleveland. So you're looking at a potential for a team to trade. If they trade outside the top 10, they're trading even more. But if you're trading from inside the top 10, ergo the New York Giants trading up from 6, you could potentially be getting 2 first rounds back, an extra second, an extra third, an extra 4th, or swap 4ths is what the Eagles did with the Cleveland Browns. And all you have to do is move back a couple spots. So if you're San Francisco, and I know you need edge, I know you need to come out of this draft with good pass rushers, right? So let's say the Cardinals take Nick Bosa at 1. We talked about this earlier. Maybe they'll take Quinnen Williams. Maybe they'll take Nick Bosa. If Nick Bosa's gone at 1, right? So the defensive end that you really wanted is gone. You really don't need an interior defensive lineman like Quinnen Williams. So then you trade out of that, gather more picks, and you've only traded back to 6, and then you could pick up another edge rusher, one of the other ones we talked about earlier, and you have still gotten a good player, but also gotten all of these draft assets. This is what I think a lot of NFL teams really should be doing. If you're in the top 5 and you don't need a quarterback, leverage the fact you're in the top 5 and really use a team like the Broncos, like the Jags, like the Giants, like the Redskins, who need a quarterback and who are going to overpay to come up because they're all scared about losing their player and not getting high enough in the draft. use that to your advantage. Go get more draft picks here because, again, if Bosa falls, we talked about this earlier, if Bosa falls to 2, then take Bosa because he's the best defensive player in this draft. He's for sure the best pass rusher in this draft. So if he falls, stay where you're at, take him. But if the Cardinals take Bosa at 1, and you're sitting at number 2, and the phone rings, and it's the New York Giants saying, we're coming up for either Kyler Murray or Dwayne Haskins, accept the deal, move back to 6, and then get all these additional picks, because you only have 6 picks this year, and if you're going to spend one on Antonio Brown, which we talked about earlier, you're going to have 5 picks in this draft. You need additional young talent to continue to build this team. I think that's a perfect scenario for the San Francisco 49ers. Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, they have great combines, they have great individual workouts, they have great pro days, and they entice those teams further back to overpay to move up to number 2. That way, the 49ers get more draft picks, and they can get more players, and eventually really build up the roster and get it to where we know it's on track to become. What do you guys think? What should the 49ers do? I just threw out a bunch of scenarios. Do you think they should trade to move back? Do you think they should stay? I want to hear from you guys. Let me know as we go into our final topic. And this one was very interesting to me because it revolves around Steve Young. And a quote that Steve Young had, and we'll put that up here in a second, but it's Steve Young said in an interview that the 49ers need to invest, quote, heavily in the offense this offseason. He went on an interview with KNBR and emphasized again the need for offensive weapons. The 49ers, they have a solid tight end in Kittle. They have a solid running back, but they don't have really any outside talent. Pierre Garçon's probably going to be gone, so you're sitting there with really Marquise Goodwin. Like, that's the best skill player that you have. I know George Kittle's great, but you need players on the outside to really complement Jimmy Garoppolo. The NFL has turned into an offensive league, and Steve Young knows that, and that's what he said right here. Listen to the quote from Steve Young. Here we go. I would go all in on offense right now. I know we just saw the lowest scoring game in the history of the Super Bowl, so it's like, oh yeah, Steve, that's great. Great tip on the offense thing. But the 4 teams that had the best offenses in the league are all the last 4 that made the championship games. It's just inevitable. I would get a pass rusher and a corner and then just pour money into the offense. Steve is on the right track, in my opinion, here. I think Steve Young nailed it. He's right. The NFL has transitioned into an offensive league. For years, we were saying defense wins championships, defense wins championships. It's not the case anymore. You need a high-powered, high-flying offense that can score 30 points at any time. The San Francisco 49ers do not have that yet, but with all their cap space, $60+ million. They only have 6 draft picks, which we talked about, but there are ways that the 49ers can add players, and this is the scenario we keep talking about. Let's say you trade for Antonio Brown. You give away a 4th-round pick. Boom, you already have a great wide receiver. You could even, if you don't get Antonio Brown, go to the free agency class. There isn't a lot there, but you could get someone like a Golden Tate. You can afford a guy like a Golden Tate to come in and bolster the wide receiver core. And then you go to the draft, and you can even do what Steve Young says. You can get Bosa at 2 if he falls, which we talked about earlier, or you can trade back, get more assets, and just go all in on, you could add another running back, you could even add another tight end. The tight ends are good in this draft class. You could have Kittle and another one, you can draft another wide receiver. Steve Young is right, in my opinion, when he says you got to go all in for offense. I know the 49ers were bad on defense last year. I know that they need pass rushers. I know they need basically a whole new secondary. But let's say, if we go through all the rumors we just talked about, you sign Earl Thomas, you trade for Antonio Brown, you draft Nick Bosa, or you trade back and draft a different pass rusher, and then you have still a young pass rusher to add into the mix. Then you draft all these young skill players, and we're looking at a rebuild. What's really a rebuild year for the 49ers, but it could become something a lot quicker because you already have the great head coach in Kyle Shanahan and the great young quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. Steve Young gets it. He's looked at the league. He sees the Chiefs with Patty Mahomes. He sees the Eagles with Carson Wentz. He sees all these young, high-flying offenses. Even the Rams, even though they didn't score much in the Super Bowl, they're still an offensive juggernaut when healthy. He looks at all these teams and goes, hey, why can't the San Francisco 49ers do this? We have the money in free agency. We can essentially either trade and get good players with our draft picks or get more draft picks if we trade out of number 2. Bolster the offense is what Steve Young says, and I think this is exactly what they should do and exactly what the San Francisco 49ers will do going forward into this offseason. So many different scenarios. It's always fun for a team, especially when I'm looking at a team like the San Francisco 49ers sitting at number 2 with a ton of cap space. It's like the best of both worlds. You can do a little bit of free agency here. You can trade out of number 2, or you can get a really good player here. You have a wealth of options if you're San Francisco because you already have the young quarterback and you already have the really good offensive-minded head coach. These are things that are light years ahead of what other teams are trying to find this year. And if the San Francisco 49ers can put the pieces together, we're looking at what could be a lot faster rebuilding time, maybe even in 2 or 3 years instead of 4 or 5 than many people think. What do you guys think about Steve Young's quote, though? Type O down below if they should go all in on offense, or type D down below if they should go all in for defense. So basically, O for yes offense, D for no, stay and just get defensive players. Let me know down below. And as always, if you have any NFL rumors, tweet at me at Earl Thomas Mott. Again, I always like to talk to you guys on Twitter. Let's get involved here back and forth. I know all you 49er fans are hungry and excited about this offseason. I can't wait. It's going to be a great offseason. For Chat Sports and all your San Francisco 49ers news, I'm Thomas Mott. Thanks for watching.